June 8, 1974, a secret room in Riyadh. What the Americans offered that day would change everything, but here's what they didn't tell the Saudis. Let me show you something that'll blow your mind. On June 8, 1974, a quiet handshake between US diplomats and Saudi royals rewired the global economy. The agreement was simple. In exchange for American security guarantees, Saudi Arabia would price oil exclusively in US dollars. But why? Why would the Saudis agree to this? And more importantly, what did America get out of this deal that made it the most powerful nation on earth? The answer is darker and more brilliant than you think. For decades, that deal fueled American dominance on the global stage. But half a century later, cracks are forming. Shifting alliances now test the empire built on oil and trust. And here's the crazy part. What's happening in 2025 is exactly what the architects of this system feared most. Stay with me, because the ending of this story, you won't see it coming. The setup. America's darkest hour. In 1974, America was still trembling from the first oil shock. Oil prices had quadrupled since 1973. Lines curled around nearly every city block. Inflation burned through paychecks, and the US, once an oil giant, had increasingly become foreign dependent. Crude oil imports made up nearly a third of domestic consumption. On the other side of the world, the newly emboldened OPEC was flexing its muscle, wielding the oil embargo like a weapon. They had just proven they could strangle the world's biggest economy with a single decision. And America's trump card, the dollar backed by gold, gone. Nixon had killed that just 3 years earlier in 1971. So now you've got a currency backed by nothing. Just trust. America needed a miracle. Or a really, really good deal. The Mission Impossible. And so, a US diplomatic envoy boarded a plane to Riyadh. The mission? Convince Saudi Arabia, the biggest global oil producer, to price its barrels in US dollars, and only dollars. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Saudis should have said no. Why would they limit themselves to one currency? Why give America that much power? But as it would turn out, the Saudis had their own fears. While their oil wealth was growing fast, the kingdom was surrounded by instability. Regional rivals watched hungrily, ready to pounce at the sight of weakness. Iran, Iraq, Egypt, all of them would love to see the Saudi kingdom fall. So while the Saudis already had the market, they needed a shield. And the Americans were offering the best shield money could buy. In exchange for pricing oil exclusively in greenbacks, Washington promised security guarantees, weapons contracts, and a safe home for Saudi oil riches in US Treasuries and banks. The Saudis agreed. But here's what really happened, and this is the part they don't teach you in economics class. The greatest heist in history. The petrodollar was born, and with it, petrodollar recycling, a loop which began with oil exports and ended in the American debt market. According to the Bank of International Settlements annual reports, investments in the eurodollar market reached $22.8 billion in 1974, a nearly 100% jump from 1973. But let me explain what this actually meant, because this is where it gets wild. Every country on Earth needed oil. Cars ran on it, factories needed it, militaries couldn't function without it. So every country needed dollars first, before they could buy oil. Japan needed dollars, Germany needed dollars, China needed dollars, France needed dollars. And where's the only place you can get dollars? America. The dollar had become not just America's currency, but the world's operating system. In fact, by 2022, dollar invoicing was used in more than 70% of global trades, despite accounting for only about 20% of global GDP. America had just created artificial demand for its currency that had nothing to do with its actual economy. It was genius. While the Petrodollar Pact was founded in oil, it wasn't just about oil. At the time, no other currency matched the depth and liquidity of US Treasuries. This meant that OPEC oil exporters could recycle hundreds of billions of oil money into dollar assets easily and without affecting prices. Being under the US's power also ensured Gulf rulers could sleep peacefully at night. No other nation could offer that kind of protection. So, once the pieces were in place, the rest fell in place automatically. Global commodities, trade finance, and sovereign reserves were priced in dollars. In fact, nearly 80% of global reserves were held in dollars in the 70s. This system gave America the ability to print money that the entire world needed. Need to fund a war in Iraq? Print dollars. The world will absorb it because they need dollars for oil. Need to bail out Wall Street in 2008? Print trillions. The world will take it because they need dollars for oil. Want to send everyone stimulus checks during a pandemic? Print 5 trillion. The world has to accept it because they need dollars for oil. As long as oil was priced in dollars, America had an infinite money glitch. But here's what nobody saw coming. The empire's fatal mistake. But even the greatest empires age. By the 2020s, small fissures began to appear in the Petrodollar foundation. It all started with Washington's over-reliance on financial sanctions as a foreign policy tool, a tactic also known as weaponized finance. First it was Iran, then Russia, and beyond. And suddenly, everyone started wondering if dollars could be turned off. Was depending on them a vulnerability? Then, in 2023, reports started to emerge that Chinese oil and gas player CNOOC and French energy giant Total Energies had completed China's first yuan-settled LNG trade through Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange. Wait, yuan? Not dollars? By 2025, countries like India were already settling 90% of their trades, including oil barrels, in national currencies. And then came the announcement that shook the world. Saudi Arabia said something that was previously thought impossible. It was open to invoicing its crude oil in other currencies. The country that built the petrodollar just said it might not use it anymore. That's like Microsoft announcing it's switching to Linux, or Coca-Cola saying it might start making Pepsi. But wait, it gets worse. The dollar was losing its hold on central banks, with global dollar reserves falling from 71% in 1999 to around 58% by 2022. Currencies like the euro and yuan, on the other hand, had gained ground, the latter thanks to the People's Bank of China's yuan swap agreements with over 40 nations. China's cross-border interbank payment system, otherwise known as CIPS, a platform for clearing and settling RMB transactions internationally, is already rivaling SWIFT. The final question. So, who could replace the dollar? The euro, which already has deep capital markets and boasts a major trade bloc, or the yuan, which has growing commodity ties, swap networks, and Belt and Road lending, are possible challengers. However, they have proven one thing: the crown is no longer uncontested. The Endgame. For more than 50 years, the petrodollar has quietly ruled the world, its power woven into every barrel, every treasury bond, and every central bank reserve. But now, the energy market is fragmenting and new financial rails are emerging, threatening the dollar reign. Yet rivals still lack what made the greenback king. So, the dollar still holds the crown, at least for now. But if oil stops choosing dollars, we may see a future where no single king rules. The question isn't if the system breaks, it's when. And what happens next could reshape everything about the global economy. So, what do you think? Is the petrodollar already dead and we just don't know it yet? Or will America pull off another miracle? Drop your boldest prediction in the comments. And if this blew your mind, hit that like button and subscribe, because next video, we're exposing how billionaires hide their wealth offshore, legally. The loopholes are insane, and you need to see this. See you in the next one.